when I get to a house, I'm going to show up at the house. The first thing I do, and I have some tricks. I'm going to show up at the front door, knock or whatever. I shake hands and make eye contact, right? That's a really important basic for meeting people professionally. I am going to probably take my shoes off in their house, depending on the situation of their house. If their house is gross, I'm probably not going to offer to take my shoes off. But people are so honored if you take a moment to offer to take your shoes off in their house, right? And a lot of people are, depending on your culture, shoe off in the house people. I also am going to the kitchen table. Usually I'm going to put down things either on the kitchen table or in the dining room area, someplace where we can sit where there's a hard surface. I haven't done a scientific study, but I have lost more listings to listing appointments done on a couch than like any other one thing. A living room is a terrible place to do a listing appointment. You need a hard surface and you need everybody paying attention. You sit back and you pass things around. It just doesn't work the same way. So kitchen table, I set that down and then I'm going to do a tour. So my walkthrough on a house is not about the house usually, right? I'm going to learn how many beds and baths there are. I'm going to learn how many, whether they have tile on the floor or carpet. I'm going to learn all that stuff and I'm going to take notes about it as if it's the most important thing in the world. But what I'm really doing is I'm creating rapport. I may be noting things that need fixed, that are broken, a hole in the wall, something like that, but I'm probably not pointing it out to the seller at the time we're walking through the house. Because talking about all the things that are wrong with our house while you're selling yourself to be their advocate it doesn't coincide with what works for me, right? So I'm gonna build rapport with them. I'm gonna talk to them about why they're moving, and we're gonna talk about that more in a minute. Forward, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, right? In this case, in addition to that, on the listing side, you're asking where they're moving and why and what their timeline is, right? So you're getting to know them and their situation. It's really basic stuff, you guys, but it's so important. It's so easy for us to get involved in, the paint color and the, broken tile and, whatever the things are and not understand their actual situation, which puts you behind when you're actually sitting at the kitchen table doing the listing presentation. So getting that information and building that rapport is super key. Dress the part. I can't tell you guys how many people in my competition, in my market will show up in a hoodie, sweatshirt, and jeans. If I show up even just like this, usually I'm going to be wearing heels on a listing appointment, but that's just me because it makes me be on. But I can't tell you, if I show up this way versus somebody who's in a hoodie and sort of jeans and tennis shoes, immediately, if that is the only thing you know, most people are going to go with the person who's dressed slightly more professionally, right? Or much more professionally, right? And so even just that gives me an edge over my competition probably at least 50% of the time. Just what I'm wearing. Isn't that weird? I think that's kind of crazy. So that my shoes, that's my trick. I've actually, as I've gotten older, I don't like heels as much. So I generally have a pair of heels in my car, but not always. And I often will have heels on, but not always. I am going to connect with kids, dogs, or anything else that's in common. If there is a dog at the door, I am going to talk to the dog, become friends with the dog. Everybody's dog is like their baby if it comes to your front door, right? I write down the name of the dog without, just on the side of my notebook so that I remember that Fido, what Fido's name is, so I can refer to, an hour later I can refer to Fido. And they're always really impressed with that. I do that about kids too. I'm not necessarily the best rememberer of names all the time, but if I write down the name on my notebook, I can always refer back to it. I do that with spouses. And then show the seller, I'm still in the foyer. This is before I set anything down. I'm still in the foyer. I'm going to ask them if I can take notes. If somebody's coming to list your house and they ask you, can I take notes? What are you going to say? Of course, that would be great. Thank you so much. It's just a reminder that you're paying attention, and it's pointing it out to them without saying, hey, look how cool I am. I'm taking notes, right? So I'm always going to ask them if they mind if I take notes, and then I'm going to take notes. I have an agent on my team. He asks if they mind if he takes notes, and then he's actually also asking if he can take pictures as he walks through. I don't do that really, but he likes that so he can remember what each room looks like, and that works too. So I'm setting things at the kitchen table, and I'm anchoring that I'm coming back to the kitchen table. So I'm walking in a door, I am shaking hands, I am making eye contact, I'm talking to Fido or asking what little Junior's name is, and he's running around. And I'm offering to take off my shoes, I'm asking if it's all right if I take notes, and I'm going to the kitchen table and I'm setting down anything that I have. I usually set down my purse, I'm keeping my notebook in my hand, and I set down my folder, which I have, which clearly means that there's paperwork there. Right? This is a business appointment. How do I decide where to sit based on the hierarchy? I actually ask that question. If I'm at the dining room table, I say, hey, where do you guys usually sit? I actually do that because I do not want to be at the head of the table. I don't want to take over the head of the table thing, right? I also prefer to have them on the same side of the table or on the corner of the table, so there's not one here and one here, because it's hard to talk to both people if you're flipping back and forth, right? So I like them to be on one side or the other if I can make that happen. But I actually ask the question usually. Yep. Or I'll set my stuff down there, we'll do the rapport building, and then we'll come back, and as we're sitting down, I'll ask them that. Here's what I'm doing, right? I walk in the door, I do these things every time, I set down my things, then we go walk the house. I talk about what I'm talking about while we walk the house, and then we come back down, and we come back to the table, and we sit down and we do the listing appointment. Or the listing presentation, sorry. So that's how I keep control of it. Now, a lot of times about this time they say, so how much do you think the house is worth? And I hit that every time throughout my listing presentation is how much is the house worth? I don't talk about that on our tour. I don't talk about that when I walk in the door. So based on that situation, it's hard to know if you have somebody who's really just lonely and wants to talk. I sometimes have those sorts of people who my listing appointment is longer than 45 minutes. I block out an hour and a half for listing appointments myself because I need an hour for the entire listing appointment and a half an hour for paperwork before I know I can get out of there. And I have had situations where I didn't have enough time to do paperwork and I said, oh, I'll get you paperwork, we'll get paperwork signed electronically, and I lost it. Right? Because I didn't have time. So I always give myself enough time, but my newer agents need 2 hours because they can't manage an appointment as well as far as getting it to move along. I'm not sure I can tell you exactly how I do that, though. Some of that is just having the presence to kind of move things along. I'm really high D, so I don't have a lot of, I'm high I and I'm high D, but I'm higher D, so I kind of move things along. Yeah. How do you manage them for what would you do here, or what color paint should I paint it, so how should I'm talking about that stuff because I don't want to minimize what they're talking about, right? But what I really want to understand is what their situation is. Family, occupation, recreation, dream. Why are you moving? When are you moving? I really like to do I want to see the whole house so I can really create a strategy for the entire house. Often that's just enough to take them back from, what do I do in this little room, or how are we going to do this room versus this room? I want to create a strategy for the whole house. So let's hold that for a second, and we'll get back to that when we sit down. I'll take notes. So let's go through this whole thing, and then we'll get back to that. Because I do think that there's a strategy I also have for being that third agent. I'm not in a lot of situations where they're 3 people and they're not allowed to sign anything. So that's a little bit of a specific situation that I probably am not so good at training on, but I actually I'll circle back to that because I think there's some things I do when I'm in competition. Yeah. Dream. What are they really excited about? Where do they want to go? Right? It's family, occupation, recreation, dream. But you're also where are they going? When are they going? Why are they going? Right? That's really sort of all in there. So, and the other thing is I'm always touring first. They want to hear about what you're going to do, how you're going to market the house. Great. I'd love to see the house first, and then we can kind of create a plan for your house. My marketing plan always is how I'm going to market your house. We're going to create a marketing plan for your house. I want to talk through a marketing plan for your house. My listing presentation, guys, it's the same listing presentation for every house with different comps, right? But it's a marketing plan for their house. And that's important because their house is the most important house. This is Ron Anderson taught me this one. This is really an important one. People like people who like them. People like people who are like them. And people like people who agree with them. So I want to like these people. I'm going to find some reason to like them. I'm going to find some way that I am like them. And I'm going to find some way to agree with them. I walked into a living room the other day, and there are different paint swatches across the living room wall. And I was like, wow, it looks like you guys were trying to decide on a paint color. What'd you decide? And they're like, well, yeah, that's from like 3 years ago. I was like, oh, cool. And, you know, did you decide? And they, of course, couldn't decide on one. And I was like, oh, yeah, I actually like these two or whatever. I'm trying to like them. I'm trying to like them, and I'm trying to like their house. So that's the other reason I'm not pointing out things that I don't like about their house, right? I'm not pointing out, usually, the master bedroom tile that's cracked. I'm not pointing out the hole in the door where someone got mad and punched it, right? It was probably their 15-year-old teenage boy. I'm not pointing out the really dark basement that's painted the wrong color. I'm not doing any of that on the actual tour. I'm writing down. So I actually use 2 columns in my notebook. I write the main part of my notebook is all the things about the house I want to remember. And the right side, I just make little notes, and I don't talk about them, but I make little notes on the side that just is things that I would recommend they do in order to get their house sold, get their house to look prettier, whatever the thing is. And then I'm going to talk about that at the kitchen table when we're actually going through the listing presentation. Does that make sense? I want them to hear about how much I like their house, not about how much I don't like their house or the things that they're already self-conscious about. You guys, people have messy houses. People who have clean houses are self-conscious about how messy their house is. People who have messy houses sometimes pretend to ignore it, but they are also self-conscious about how messy their house is, right? Or how whatever their house is. So I want them to know I like their house. The same way I want them to know that I like them, somehow.
Club Wealth is the only coaching company on the planet that will literally guarantee that you will double your income or make at least an extra $100,000 your first year coaching with us, or we will give you 100% of your investment back. Click the link below, sign up for the appropriate tier level, and let's get you a strategy session today. And I promise you, I 100% guarantee you, promise you that you will walk away with a heart full of gratitude for the time that we took for you because you got so much value out of that call. Schedule your strategy session today. I promise you'll be glad you did.